Welcome aboard. If you found this video while trying to fall asleep, or maybe while wondering what life was like for ordinary people centuries ago, you're in the right place. Tonight, we set sail not with kings or conquerors, but with sailors. We'll drift into the cold winds of the 14th century Baltic Sea, aboard a Hanseatic cog, a wide, single-masted merchant ship made of oak and iron nails. No battles, no crusades, no great heroes. Just salt, rope, frost, and grain. This isn't a tale of glory. It's a slow-moving story of heavy cargo, stiff backs, and the sound of boots on damp wooden planks. So if you're lying in bed, half awake, I invite you to stay. Let the creaking timbers and the low tide take over. And before we begin, feel free to drop a comment below. Where are you watching from, and what time is it right now? Just curious how many of us are sleepless together. Now, grab your cloak. The anchor's lifting. And the North Sea waits. It begins not with sails, but with silence. At dawn, the harbor of Lübeck is still wrapped in mist, the water thick and glassy. The cog floats low in the water, tied loosely to the dock, like a large wooden beast unsure whether to sleep or to stir. She has no name carved on her side, most don't. Just a cross-shaped rudder, a high stern, and a hull blackened by tar and seawater. Aboard, the men are already moving. There are no bells or shouting, only footsteps and the occasional thud of a wooden chest being dragged across the deck. The cog's single mast creaks softly as if stretching awake. 12 crewmen. 1 helmsman. A ship's master. No captain in the way modern people think of one, this is a merchant's vessel. Decisions come from the merchant back ashore, or from the master when the sea makes shore irrelevant. The youngest sailor is a boy named Jacob, no older than 13, eyes red from too little sleep. His job this morning is to haul sacks of rye onto the deck and tie them down with thick hemp ropes. He knows better than to complain. Bread is made of rye, and so is this journey. Each man has his place. Hans the steersman, stooped, broad-shouldered, keeps the rudder oiled with a mixture of fish fat and beeswax. Wilhelm patches a worn sail with linen and pine resin. 2 others lower crates of beeswax and wool into the hold, while the ship sways gently under their boots. There is no singing. Medieval sailors don't sing sea shanties. They mutter, spit, curse the cold, and save their breath for the work. The cog smells of salt, tar, and dried cod. It is dark below deck, except for a sliver of light from the hatch. The cargo, carefully arranged, includes sacks of salt from Lüneburg, linen from Flanders, barrels of herring caught and preserved by hand, and a small bundle of letters sealed with wax. These letters will be carried by ship across the sea to merchants in Visby, Revel, and perhaps even Novgorod, if the wind is kind and the hull holds. On the dock, a merchant named Arnulf watches the last bundles being loaded. His cloak is lined with fur. He does not speak to the sailors. His ledger does. He makes a small mark next to the word amber. Amber is valuable. Soft enough to carve, light enough to float, and believed by many to hold the warmth of the sun. By midday, the cog is ready. The wind is light from the northwest. It will be a slow journey. Jacob unties the last rope from the piling and coils it loosely on the deck. Hans calls out in Low German, and the cog groans forward. The dock falls behind. The sea stretches ahead like a sheet of iron. There is no ceremony. No prayers, no waving. This is not a voyage of exploration or conquest. It is a job. For the first hour, the men eat cold barley porridge from clay bowls. No one talks. A gull follows the ship, silent. The boy Jacob is assigned to check the bilge water. He descends below, candle in hand, and watches for leaks. He finds one. Not a gush, just a slow, steady drip from a seam near the keel. He marks the spot with a piece of chalk and reports to Wilhelm, who nods, spits in his hand, and grabs the oakum. Leaks are normal. Water always finds its way in. As night approaches, the wind stiffens. A grey sheet of clouds rolls across the sky. No storm, just cold and wet. The men roll themselves into coarse woolen cloaks. The ship's master, a tall man with weather-etched skin and a silver brooch at his collar, scratches notes into a wax tablet. He does not smile. They will follow the coast for now. Open sea is faster, but more dangerous. Pirates still prowl these waters. Danish, Prussian, or simply hungry. The cog rocks gently as the lanterns are lit and hung along the rail. Jacob is given the middle watch. He will stay awake from midnight until dawn, staring out into the dark water. His hands are cracked. His feet are soaked. His eyes droop. But as he leans against the mast, he listens to the water slap against the hull and the ropes whisper above, and he thinks, not unhappily, that this is better than farming turnips. In the dark, the sea breathes. And the cog sails on. By the second day, routine has set in. There are no clocks aboard a cog. Time is measured in the rhythm of tasks and the slow crawl of light across the sky. Watches are taken in turns, 4 hours standing, 8 hours resting. Though resting often means mending ropes, boiling water, or emptying the bilge. Jacob is learning. He has blisters on both palms from hauling the heavy yard, the long horizontal beam that supports the sail. This morning, the ship's master, Hendrik, is testing his patience. Faster, he says, without raising his voice. Jacob is climbing the mast using iron rungs hammered into the timber, a bucket of pitch tied to his waist. He reaches the junction where sail and wood meet, dips a brush, and coats the binding line. The pitch smells sharp, pine and animal fat. Below, the cog sways on a modest swell. The Baltic is calm today. Just a light chop, grey and glinting. Gulls call from behind them. A single, large herring gull has been following the ship for hours. "You ever seen that bird blink?" asks Marcus, one of the older sailors, nudging another with his elbow. "I swear it's possessed." Nobody laughs. Humor aboard ship is dry as salt pork. Meal times are brief and quiet. A stew of onions and barley is boiled in an iron pot tied to the deck. The cook, whose only name is Shawk, adds salted meat cut thin, barely softened. There's no fresh bread, only coarse, hard biscuit. The water tastes of wood and algae, stored in sealed barrels since Lubeck. Some drink beer instead. Not because it's a pleasure, but because it is less likely to make them sick. Jacob eats fast, using a spoon made from antler. Then he coils rope by the mast. Then he scrapes barnacles off the hull with a pole. Then he listens. Life aboard is noisy in strange ways. The creak of timber. The flap of sail. The occasional curse. But there is no singing, no music. Even talking is brief. Words are saved for when they matter. That afternoon, the wind turns strange. Not stronger, just inconsistent. The cog, already slow, begins to drift a bit off course. Hendrik consults a sea chart. It's not a map like modern eyes expect, just lines and compass roses, drawn in dark ink. "We hug the coast now," he mutters. "Better to lose a day than lose the ship." The coast is a low green line on the horizon, smudged by sea haze. Somewhere inland are the marshes of Pomerania, dense and flat. Occasionally, a wooden watchtower is visible on shore, used to spot incoming sails or signal danger. That night, the air turns colder. Jacob's wool tunic is damp. He tries to sleep by the base of the mast, wrapped in a cloak that smells of smoke and fish. He stares up at the sail, barely moving. There are no stars. Only grey sky, and the sound of the rudder shifting gently back and forth. By the fourth day at sea, the smell of the cog is everywhere. Salt clings to everything. It's in the ropes, in the folds of the men's tunics, in the barrels stacked below deck. The tar that seals the hull softens under the sun, releasing a sharp, earthy scent that clings to Jacob's skin no matter how often he rinses with cold water. Above deck, the sky is bright and cloudless. The sun over the Baltic is pale and high. It doesn't warm much, but it burns if you stay still. So nobody stays still. Jacob is ordered to the stern to help with the steering. The cog has no wheel, just a massive tiller attached to the rudder. It's heavier than he expects. He braces with both feet, sweating under his cloak. The helmsman nods quietly, eyes always forward. He only speaks when absolutely necessary. Swells coming in from northeast. Jacob squints at the water. He doesn't see it, not yet. But he nods anyway. Beneath the surface, the ship groans and strains. Every creak is normal, the men say. The worst noise is silence. Silence means the ship has stopped talking. Below deck, the air is thick. Crates of beeswax and wool are stacked side by side with live chickens and salted cod. Nothing separates cargo from crew. Rats move silently in the shadows. Once a day, someone bangs on the hull to scare them out. It barely works. Jacob's bunk is just a wide plank behind some crates. His blanket smells like vinegar. He sleeps in half-conscious stretches, waking to the sound of boots above or someone shifting weight nearby. Once, he wakes to the sound of something chewing beside his head. He doesn't check. Food hasn't improved. The barley stew has become thinner. The biscuit is now damp. Beer rations are stretched, mixed with water that tastes like iron. The men chew slowly, silently, like monks. Sometimes, when it's quiet, Marcus tells a story. They say there's a ghost ship out here. No sail. Just a hull and one red lantern. If you see it, you change course. No one replies. Everyone has their own tale, but no one believes it matters. The work continues. They check rigging. They clean the deck with salt water and bundled reeds. They caulk the seams, one line at a time, heating pine resin in small pots. The wind is weak, so progress is slow. The sails hang heavy and tired, like lungs out of breath. Afternoons stretch. The sun sinks slowly behind a veil of haze. The horizon barely moves. Jacob notices how the sea changes color across the hours. Gray in the morning, greenish by noon, silver at dusk. The sky reflects none of it. There are birds, too. Black-headed gulls, puffins, auks, all watchers. None of them come close. One night, a fog rolls in thick and sudden. The ship is swallowed whole. A bell is rung every minute from the prow. Jacob is sent forward with a torch and orders to call out if he sees anything. He doesn't. Just the pale glow of the torch, and the slow, eternal slosh of water against hull. He feels like they're not moving at all. Just drifting in one place the size of a barrel. But in the morning, the fog lifts, and there's still sea ahead. There's a joke among the hand sailors. We don't count days at sea. We count coughs and splinters. By the seventh day, Jacob understands. The cog is a floating compromise, part cargo mule, part stubborn barn. It does not glide like a galley, nor cut water like a longship. It sways. It leans. It moans in protest. Every knot forward is earned. The crew has stopped measuring distance. Instead, they name each stretch by what went wrong. The sour rope league was when the coil near the sail came loose, and 3 men were nearly tossed overboard. The stale biscuit league was when the last dry biscuit was discovered to be soft in the middle. Worms inside. They ate it anyway. Then came boil league. A quiet sailor named Peter had a festering boil on his back. It burst during watch. No one speaks of it, but they all remember the smell. Hendrik keeps the log. He writes in a tight, careful hand using soot ink and dry vellum. His entries are brief. Wind southerly. Crew functional. Rat caught. Fog passed. Replaced sail lashings. No stars. Course by swell. Some days, they see nothing. No land, no other ships. Just sea like beaten tin and sky like old wool. It's a geography of emptiness. Still, Hendrik insists they are making progress. Once, a black sail appeared on the western horizon. The crew watched it in silence until it faded. Hendrik gave no orders to follow or flee. That night, the bell was rung more often. Jacob begins to dream in waves. He hears water even in his sleep. One night, he wakes up gripping a rope that wasn't there. Another night, he dreams of land, flat fields and sheep, someone calling his name. It hurts more than he expects. Above deck, there are small moments of peace. Marcus teaches him knots, bowline, reef, clove hitch. Each one has a rhyme. He learns them by repetition, like prayer. Elsewhere, repairs continue. The sail is patched using linen squares soaked in oil. Ropes are whipped at the ends to stop fraying. A broken barrel is repurposed into a seat. The cog is never perfect, only functional. One afternoon, they spot land, barely. A smear of green under grey cloud. It could be Denmark, or Gotland, or just an island with no name. They don't stop. Stopping means taxes, inspection, delay. And this is not their port. Instead, the cog creaks onward. A gull lands on the prow, bold as a king, and stays there for hours. Nobody shoos it away. That night, as Jacob relieves the watch, he asks Marcus, "How do you know when we're halfway?" Marcus chews a strip of dried meat. "You don't. But when the lice start dying, that's usually a sign." Then he hands Jacob the oil lamp and disappears into the dark. There are days when the sea refuses to move. No breeze. No current. Just a heavy stillness that makes even time feel lazy. The cog rests on a slate-colored mirror, its sail limp, like a prayer left unanswered. Jacob wakes sweating, though it is cold. The air below deck is thick and unmoving. Someone is snoring. Someone else is coughing. It echoes louder when there is no creak of movement to cover it. Above deck, everything is slower. The crew moves as if wading through soup. Tools are heavier. Voices are fewer. Marcus, as usual, speaks without warning. Best to work during dead calm. Less sway. So they scrub the deck. They reseal the resin along the gunnels. Jacob is taught to clean a coil of rope until it's almost soft. Salt eats everything, especially neglect. The ship's log continues. Hendrik writes the same phrase 3 days in a row. Still. No wind. Crew functional. The ink is made from oak galls and iron salts, dark and permanent. It stains his fingertips, which he doesn't bother washing anymore. Hands on this ship are stained in every way. Jacob asks why he keeps writing if nothing changes. Because it will, Hendrik says, and if it doesn't, someone will want to know why. There are talks of ports again. Lübeck is fat this time of year, says a sailor named Otto. Grain, herring, timber. They'll trade anything for copper nails. Another speaks of Danzig, too many tolls. And another of Visby, you can smell the hops before the city gates. Jacob has seen maps, once. They are painted on stretched skin, all curves and creatures. They promise order, but none of the sea listens to paint. The cargo is rechecked. They count barrels, sniff for rot, adjust the lashing. Beeswax must not melt. Wool must stay dry. Every shipment has an owner far away with a name no one here has heard. They talk of markets they'll never see. Otto, while sharpening a blade, jokes about buying a cow. Big, ugly one. Name her Margaret. Retire in peace. Nobody laughs. The captain does not show often. When he does, he stands at the stern, silent. His hat is lined with fur, even in summer. He watches the horizon like it might apologize. During evening rations, a flying fish jumps on board. It flaps helplessly on the deck. Someone catches it with a cup and throws it back. This is the only surprise in 4 days. Later, Jacob asks Marcus if he ever gets bored. Of course, Marcus says, picking at his teeth, but not often enough to be safe. When Jacob doesn't answer, Marcus adds, a bored crew forgets things. Ropes, fires, food. That's when the sea gets ideas. At dusk, they see a single puff of cloud on the east. Thin, almost like a smear. But it flutters the sail. Just a little. Someone cheers. Others curse softly, not at the cloud, but at the memory of moving. The cog doesn't leap forward. It drifts. But now, it drifts with purpose. Jacob breathes and, for the first time in a week, tastes change in the wind. There are more ways for a cog to suffer than storms. Now that wind returns, so do the little misfortunes, quiet, unspectacular, and often toothy. Jacob notices the gnaw marks first. A fine edge chewed off a sack of rye flour. Then a hole near the lamp oil. One morning, he wakes to a soft rustling beside his blanket. A rat, round as a fist, disappears into the cracks. Get used to them, Marcus mutters. They've sailed longer than most of us. But getting used to something doesn't mean liking it. Hendrik records it. Rats increasing. Supplies adjusted. No full loss yet. Jacob begins to hear scratching at night. Some sailors bang on barrels with spoons. Others mutter charms. Superstition and practicality mix freely on board. Rat traps are set, crude and brutal. Buckets with oil, sharpened wood, dried salted fish. By the third day, they catch 5. One is still alive. Otto crushes it with his boot, saying nothing. Meanwhile, Jacob is learning to chew on the right side. A molar in his back jaw throbs whenever the wind shifts. The pain wakes him. He digs a fingernail into the gum, looking for an answer. Marcus offers him a piece of dried clove bark. Won't fix it, he says, but might confuse the nerve. There is no healer on board. If a tooth wants out, it comes out with a knife, a hook, or prayer. Jacob starts sleeping upright to dull the ache. Above deck, there's tension. A rope was cut short, too cleanly to beware. The ship's knife count is now off by 1. Nobody accuses out loud, but eyes narrow. Jacob learns that thievery isn't the only crime. Suspicion is almost worse. The captain addresses it without raising his voice. We're bound to Visby. I don't want disputes weighing us down like rotten cargo. No one replies. 2 nights later, a sailor named Jürgen is found with his satchel half-packed. Inside, spice, beeswax, someone else's belt. He doesn't protest. He just looks past everyone, as if already gone. They don't beat him. They don't chain him. The punishment is simpler. The next morning, they dock briefly at a wooden buoy platform near a fishing post. No flag, no town. Jürgen is put into a small boat with a half-sail and a skin of water. His pointed east. Nobody watches him drift away. Jacob doesn't know if this is mercy or cruelty. But the ship is quieter afterward. That night, as he turns in, he finds a dead rat on his blanket. Neck broken. No blood. Someone placed it gently, like a gift. He tosses it overboard, then checks his belt pouch twice before sleeping. A thin mist settles over the deck by morning, making the rigging vanish above them. The cog doesn't stop moving now, not since the wind returned. The horizon shifts steadily. The water changes hue with each passing day, from iron to blue to glassy green. Jacob stands near the prow, watching. He's still not sure what he's looking for. Maybe a shape on the horizon. Maybe a god that never speaks. Today is inventory day. Hendrik pulls the copper ledger from its oiled pouch. Each page is thick, written in dense Gothic script, marked with cross lines, tallies, merchant seals. Jacob holds a lantern while Hendrik reads out loud. 10 barrels of smoked herring. 6 of ash timber. 2 of alum. 1 chest of tin crosses. He doesn't ask why someone wants tin crosses or why another line reads buttons, 1,600, assorted. Everything has a price. And price moves faster than war or peace. Later, Jacob helps unload the newer cargo into the lowest hold. He climbs between the ribs of the ship, balance learned from bruises. There's a smell of brine and dried meat. He tries not to think too much. Above deck, Otto argues with a man named Elric over a misplaced pulley. Their words are sharp but quiet. This isn't a ship for shouting. Not anymore. Jacob overhears them later, laughing. Elric hands Otto a dried fig from his sleeve. Apologies here are rarely spoken aloud. Dinner is boiled beans and more beans. Some sailors sprinkle salt like it's treasure. Jacob still eats in silence, watching others more than the food. Marcus joins him. You know what a ship's biggest cargo is? Marcus asks. Jacob shrugs. Gossip. Jacob raises a brow. Marcus grins. You'll see. He does. The next day, whispers spread like spilled wine. The captain once served under pirates. The first mate used to be a monk. The cook is wanted in Riga for selling horses without permission. Jacob hears 6 different versions of a story where Otto wrestled a bear. None are true. Or maybe all of them are. At sunset, someone plays a stringed lute below deck. A tune with no words. One sailor hums along, another slaps the rhythm softly on a barrel. It's not beautiful, but it's something like peace. Jacob listens, back against the mast, until the sound fades. The next morning, there's fog again. Denser. Thicker. The world turns white and close. Elric climbs the rigging, calling out nothing and hearing nothing back. Otto lights a lantern and waves it near the prow. Voices are shorter now. Footsteps slower. It's easy to forget where the sea ends and the sky begins. The fog thins by noon, revealing a line on the horizon. Land. It isn't their destination. Just a stretch of rocky coast. No port, no name, no welcome. But the wind is shifting again, and the crew needs water. The cog drops anchor near a narrow beach fringed by pine. The rowboat is lowered. Otto, Marcus, and Jacob are chosen to go ashore. Jacob's feet hit sand for the first time in weeks. It feels wrong. Too still, too quiet. The forest looms. The underbrush is thick. Otto carries a small axe. Marcus holds the water skins. Jacob is told to watch everything. They find a stream half a league inland. Cold and fast, cutting between roots and stone. They fill the skins quickly, glancing over shoulders. Marcus carves a mark into a pine with the tip of his knife, 3 straight lines. So they know we were here, he says. Jacob doesn't ask who they are. They return to the beach and pause. Someone had been there. Footprints. Not theirs. Fresh. Otto narrows his eyes. 3 men. 1 barefoot. 1 dragging something. No one says to hurry, but they do. Back in the rowboat, Jacob keeps his hand on the boat's edge like it might vanish. On board, Hendrik takes the water and says nothing. The captain doesn't ask what they saw. The sails are raised before dusk. They leave the coast behind without naming it. Later that night, Marcus leans close to Jacob. You ever wonder how many things lived on those shores before us? How many watched us walk? Jacob doesn't answer. The stars return above, and the ship creaks into deeper water. In the hold, rats are fewer now. Someone found a nest and drowned it. Jacob sleeps better, though his back hurts from the rough boards. He dreams of footsteps in sand that vanish when followed. At daybreak, wind fills the sails again. Visby is still days away. But the ship moves as if it knows the way. The morning sun turns the deck to silver. Someone laughs below. There's no reason, and no one asks why. There is no warning. The first gust comes at mid-morning, snapping a corner of the sail before anyone can shout. Hendrik curses under his breath. The sky darkens from the west, clouds folding like bruised wool. Orders are barked. Sailors scramble barefoot across slick wood. Jacob is told to tie down barrels. He moves without thinking, hands to rope, mind to silence. The rain hits like pebbles. Cold. Hard. Relentless. The cog lurches with each wave, and the ropes groan in their sockets. The rudder pulls like it wants to leap free. Otto is lashed to the tiller. He grits his teeth. His knuckles are white. The mast sways like a drunk. Marcus nearly falls before grabbing a rung of the rigging. Jacob tastes salt and fear. But the storm isn't large, it's just close. The worst passes within an hour, leaving water pooled on deck and breathless men blinking toward a fractured sky. Silence returns. Not peace, but a hush, the kind that makes your ears ring. That night, the ship creaks like it's telling secrets. Every man hears something different. Jacob lies awake listening to the planks. One knock sounds like boots. Another like a kettle dropped in another life. He thinks about the name carved into the prow, Merbeek. He doesn't know who chose it. He's never asked. In the early morning, they find a gull perched on the edge of the mast. It does not fly away. Otto offers it a scrap of bread. It doesn't move. It's dead, says Marcus. Just hasn't fallen yet. Jacob shrugs. Or waiting. They let it be. By afternoon, the wind has returned, steady and unremarkable. The sails are raised again. The cog glides forward, back into rhythm. Later, Hendrik discovers a cracked barrel of herring. The saltwater spoiled the lower half. The crew eats the rest without complaint. Jacob sits with Marcus near the prow. Storms remind us who we are, Marcus says. Jacob says nothing, because sometimes Marcus is right. That night, the stars come out one by one. They seem to blink slower, like tired eyes. The gull is gone by morning. Hendrik's voice is thin as he reads from the ledger. The ship's records are always updated after storms, no matter how minor. Salt-stained parchment, binding cracked, the ink smudged from years of damp. Jacob sits beside him, watching the quill scratch out words. Number of barrels lost, ropes frayed, injuries minor. No deaths, Hendrik mutters. That counts for something. He dots the page with a blotch of tar to seal the line. Ink was costly. Tar was always around. Tar has a smell. Sticky, heavy. It fills the nostrils, clings to hair and clothing. Every sailor is marked with it. The cog itself seems to sweat it in the heat of day. Jacob spends the morning coating seams along the hull with boiling tar, working shirtless in the sun. The brush is a hardened rag tied to a stick. The pitch steams and pops. Otto passes him a cup of water. You miss the land yet? Jacob shrugs. He hasn't thought about land in days. Maybe weeks. He dreams of it sometimes, but only the mud. Below deck, Marcus sorts dried herbs. Some are for flavor, most for wounds. The smell of crushed yarrow clings to his fingers. You can tell a ship by its smell, he tells Jacob later. Ours is fish, tar, and men who've forgotten what grass is. Jacob doesn't laugh, but he smiles. At dusk, a parchment is hung near the mast. It's a letter, one of many written by Hendrik. No wax, no seal. Just a name, a port, and hopes it reaches the right hands. This one is for Danzig. The cog may not be headed there, but another vessel might. Hanseatic shipping was never about directness. It was a web, routes shifting with wind, politics, pirates. Letters were like bottles tossed among that tide. Later that night, Jacob hears Otto humming below deck. A broken song. No words. Marcus joins in with a second line, off-key. No one tells them to stop. In the dark, someone laughs. Jacob rests with his hands behind his head, staring at the beams above. The pitch glistens black in lantern light. He wonders how many hands tarred this ship before his. Then he sleeps. There are no landmarks at sea, just the sun, the stars, and your own memory. For 2 days, the cog drifts slower than usual. The wind weakens, then veers sideways. The sails sag. Hendrik grumbles that they are in the shallows of luck. Jacob sees it first, a floating barrel, half submerged and listing. It bobs like it's drunk. Otto shouts for a pole. The crew hauls it in with effort. Inside, damp wool and 3 cracked amphorae. One still holds something thick and sweet. Honey, says Marcus, dipping a finger. Rotten, says Hendrik, but eats it anyway. They argue whether it's from Lübeck, Riga, or someplace lost to charts. It doesn't matter. Flotsam is flotsam. Sea gift. Later that evening, another ship passes in the distance, low-sailed, narrower, likely Flemish. No flags. No cannon. The two ships hail one another with a raised arm, then toss lines for a brief exchange. A few cheeses, some salted boar, a jug of ink. And news. The port at Stralsund is closed again, a sailor yells across. Jacob doesn't catch the reason. Wind carries it away. They drift apart like two thoughts, unspoken. Back aboard, Marcus tells Jacob that ports open and close like mouths. You never know if they'll feed you or swallow you. Jacob nods. Not because he understands, but because it feels true. Below deck, they examine the traded ink. Darker than theirs. A deeper blue. Hendrik looks almost pleased. Real Wismar iron gall, he says, sniffing the bottle. That night, the wind returns, soft but steady. The cog leans forward as if eager. Jacob sleeps on deck. Stars above. Tar beneath. He dreams of floating barrels. Jacob wakes before the others. The sea is calm, too calm. It mirrors the pale morning sky, flat and sullen like pewter. He walks the deck barefoot, stepping around coils of rope and the shadows of gulls gliding above. Below deck, Hendrik is already seated, writing. The fresh ink from Wismar glides across the old parchment. Jacob watches the careful strokes. Did you always want to be a merchant? Jacob asks. Hendrik looks up, not annoyed, just thoughtful. I wanted to be left alone. This was the closest thing. Breakfast is salted rye bread, harder than it should be, dipped in weak beer. They chew in silence. Later, they approach a grain port, a small coastal town without walls, just windmills and the sound of carts. Docking is quiet. No one sings. The locals speak low German, but their eyes say little. Transactions are made with hand signs and tally sticks. Salted fish is offloaded, sacks of grain brought aboard. A single wooden barrel of preserved turnips is rolled into the hold. Otto gets into an argument with a dock boy who tries to overcharge for loading. It ends with Otto pretending not to understand anything but Polish. Marcus trades a worn comb for a bundle of dried lavender. The boy looks confused, but accepts. The comb was broken anyway. Jacob and another sailor help adjust the load. Grain sacks must be balanced or the cog lists. As they finish, Marcus opens the lavender and passes a sprig to Jacob. Smell that, he says. Jacob breathes in. For a moment, it's like the world isn't made of salt and tar. When they leave the port, the wind is gentle. The sails fill and the cog glides quietly into deeper water. That night, Marcus writes something on a scrap of paper. Jacob glimpses a few words, "If I see grass again." No one asks what it means. The stars are thin, scattered. The sky feels endless. Below deck, the scent of lavender mingles with damp wood. Jacob dreams of a field he's never seen. The sea has a way of stretching time. Days blur, marked not by clocks, but by the creak of timbers and the arc of the sun. Sometimes, a whole morning disappears in the folding of a sail or the dragging of a net that yields nothing but seaweed. Even the crew has grown quiet, as if the ocean has pressed its hush upon them. Jacob keeps a tally on a piece of sailcloth, not of days, but of things that float past. 1 shoe. Half a door. A goose feather. A child's doll with one eye. Marcus laughs when he sees the list. A whole story there, he says. A shipwreck, maybe. Or a bad birthday party, Jacob replies. The wind has been inconsistent, flickering like a nervous candle. The cog groans as it rocks through sluggish swells. Below deck, the tar from the hull is beginning to seep again, staining the edges of sacks and barrels. Salt clings to every surface, including the back of Jacob's throat. They pass a seal sunning itself on a drifting log. It doesn't move, just blinks, regal and unimpressed. Someone suggests it's a spirit watching them. No one disagrees. That night, lightning flickers on the horizon, but never reaches them. The water glows faintly, algae disturbed by the bow. The crew speaks softly, as if louder voices might summon the storm. The ocean has moods, and tonight it seems to brood. Otto hums a lullaby he claims is Finnish. No one asks if it's true. He sings it mostly to himself, as he sharpens a rusting hook by the light of a lantern that swings slightly with each wave. They reach a place where sea currents cross and strange things gather. A wooden crate marked with Cyrillic letters bobs alongside them. A floating book swollen with water. Jacob pokes it with a stick, but it falls apart. Things that float, Marcus murmurs, aren't always meant to be found. Jacob adds to his list, a lute string, still taut. Hendrik finds an apple wedged in a net, almost fresh. He bites it and shrugs. Good enough. Farther out, they find an entire dead tree, bleached and stripped bare. It drifts without roots, its branches clawing the air. The sight unsettles the men more than a corpse might have. A strange current pushes them west for hours. The helmsman mutters that something is wrong with the water. They find a dead squid wrapped around a broken oar, its tentacles tangled in seaweed. Marcus pokes it. It stinks. By evening, the sky opens briefly to show a waxing moon. The cog rocks gently. A breeze, soft as breath, returns from the north. They hang soaked clothes on the lines and talk about nothing. Below deck, Marcus tries to sketch the seal on the log from memory. It looks more like a dog, but no one corrects him. He adds a crown on its head and names it Eric. Jacob lays the tally cloth beside his bunk. Tomorrow, he says, he will stop counting. But in the morning, he finds a floating hat. So he adds one more line. And below it, another, a feeling I can't name. They say you can smell land before you see it. On this particular morning, the crew doesn't say it, but they know it. The wind carries hints of soil, hearth smoke, and something green. It's like breathing in memory. Jacob is the first to rise, rubbing salt from his eyes and stepping onto the still damp deck. There's no land yet on the horizon, but he knows. He can feel it in his knees. Marcus joins him moments later, scratching at his beard and sniffing the breeze like a dog. Oak and onions, he says. Below deck, Hendrik has already repacked the ink bottles and sealed the logbook. His boots are polished, an oddity after months of grime. When asked why, he simply replies, "Some towns judge you by your boots." The cog sails slowly now, deliberately. As if even the ship is unsure it wants this to end. After weeks on water, land becomes something suspicious. Will it welcome them? Will their coin be good? Will the beer be cold? A gull lands on the rigging and stays. A sign. Of what? No one agrees. Otto tells a story about a port where the fishwives slap sailors for tipping poorly. Marcus adds a tale of a merchant city where the pigs outnumber the people and eat boots left outside. Everyone laughs. Jacob doesn't. His mind is somewhere else. He hasn't decided yet if he will disembark or stay aboard for another journey. He's saved enough to afford 2 months in a room with a stove, but not much more. He wonders if dry beds are as good as they sound. By midday, the coastline emerges, not a city, but a thin smudge of green and grey. It looks unremarkable. But to men who've seen only waves, it's a miracle. As they near, small vessels approach. Barges, skiffs, a rowboat with 3 children who wave and demand sweets. Marcus throws a dried fig at them. They cheer. Hendrik writes the date beside a crude sketch of the bay. Jacob stands at the prow, arms crossed. Almost there, someone says. He doesn't answer. He's counting. Not time. Not cargo. But breaths. As if preparing to step onto a world that no longer rocks beneath his feet. The cog groans as the anchor is prepared. Men gather rope. Voices rise. A gull screeches. And still, for a moment longer, the sea holds them gently, like a mother reluctant to let go.